Well, it's almost about time to say goodbye to 2015, and really what's a better way to do that than taking a look back and seeing all those albums that have impacted us this year. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to count down the top 10 albums of this year, in my opinion. Now, these are the albums that I like the best. This isn't necessarily the best albums of 2015. These aren't necessarily the most critically acclaimed albums of the year. These are the top 10 albums that I love listening to and that were released this year. So let's dive right into them. For Notes' top 10 albums of 2015. And coming up at the 10th spot, we have Tesseract's Polaris. This is the second full-length studio album done by the band. It's really the first introduction that I had with the band. I really love this style of playing. This is really kind of my first introduction to this type of style, the style of metal. And I love how contrast this album is. It isn't just blasting you the entire time, being relentless over and over and over again. I love that they really take their time on a lot of these songs that are on this album and really flesh out the atmosphere. I love how they were able to blend that atmospheric noise with great metal and great technical playing. Number 9. Asunder, Sweet, and Other Distress by Godspeed, You Black Emperor. I am a glutton for Godspeed, and their latest album is definitely one that they took their time really flushing out the ideas. Instead of their past works where it was just throwing things at the wall and seeing what stuck, they really took their time, and I love the fact that it is so condensed. It's like they took a full jam session and just condensed it into the best parts. I love how it's pretty much just a full song that you can listen from start to finish without any breaks. It's just a great track, one of my favorites that the band has done. I mean, everything that Godspeed puts out is golden, so this is no exception and a great addition to their discography. Number 8. Mutate Baby by Kirby Crackle. So if you haven't already noticed, I am a giant nerd and these guys make outstanding nerd rock. I love the songs on this album. They're nerdy, they are full of wit. It also has my favorite swing song about a pocket. So how can you really go wrong? A lot of the songs on this album are great. You need to check it out because they do the full gamut of musical styles. There's a few songs on here that could be a very hard rock. You've got swing songs on here. It's just the full gamut of music, and if you know nerd rock, that's kind of what we do. We don't like to be put into one box. We like to just spread our wings and fly. It's a great album. You should definitely check it out. Number 7, The Congregation by Leprous. Now, when I did my review, I kept calling it The Contagion or something like that. I apologize. It's The Congregation by Leprous. This album, I keep going back to time and time again. It's a very black and oily album. I mean, that's just the atmosphere of the overall album, and I love the big sounds of this album, much like Tesseract, but I feel like where Tesseract is still kind of finding their feet, these guys have found their feet and they're running. I'm loving songs like The Flood. I just keep going back to that song over and over and over again of just how they were able to build up the songs. Leprous is great at getting an idea, really fleshing it out, and then building up to it. And this album was great at doing that. Number 6, Wolflight by Steve Hackett. This really proves that he is not out of the game yet. Steve Hackett is still composing, he is still writing new pieces, and they are amazing. Just the presentation of it, it really shows that Steve Hackett still knows what he's doing and he loves doing what he's doing. You can feel the passion in a lot of these songs. Steve's use of the guitar, both acoustic and electric, is still like top notch. Okay, so I know I really rushed through the first 5, but I really want to get in so I could talk more about these final 5. So let's get into the second half, the top 5 albums. Coming up at number 5, we have Coma Eclectic by Between the Buried and Me. For a while there, I was really debating where to put this album because it's the most unique album the band has done to date, where they've been kind of pushing the limits of what they could do for each album. It was really interesting to see where they would go after the behemoth that was the Parallax Part 2. I see that it's not getting as good of recognition as a lot of their previous works, but for me, it is a brilliant piece. Just for the Coma Machine and those last 3 songs of Memory Palace, Option Oblivion, and Life in Velvet, these are just solid metal tracks. And I love the fact that they're not relying on that guttural, dirty vocals that a lot of these technical, brutal bands have. For me, it feels like a lot of these growls are almost a crutch that these bands rely on when a singer can't quite hit those passionate notes like they need to. And Between the Buried and Me basically shove that right back in your face and say, no, it is not a crutch. It is in fact an enhancement of the songs. And I love when a band is able to do this. They use the growls when it makes sense, and they use the cleans when it makes sense. And it's much more passionate, and it's also much more dirty when we actually get to those growls because of that stark contrast. So Coma Eclectic is definitely one of the band's better albums in my opinion, especially when we take into account some of their earlier works where it was just straight up brutal metal. And so this really shows how much they've developed and matured. Now number 4 is going to piss off a few people at being number 4, but hear me out. Number 4, Hand Cannot Erase by Steven Wilson. For me, it almost felt like The Incident 2.0. It follows the same kind of a structure that The Incident was, and it had a lot of those same notes. It had a lot of those same themes and concepts, and I don't know, it just kept hitting those same notes that I felt like The Incident already hit. That being said, it is still a beautiful piece of work. You know, you gotta take the flaws with the overall package and kind of look at it a little bit objectively, but for me, it's more of the impact that I felt listening to it, and it didn't have that same impact that, say, The Raven or Grace for Drowning did. It still had a lot of those, like, blow me back moments, and this is especially with Regret number 9, and even Ancestral. I'm still processing it, and I'm loving that guitar solo, where when I was talking about it when it first came out, I didn't quite get it. I still don't, but I love that fact. I love that the more I listen to it, the more it kind of shifts and turns and becomes its own thing. And so I love that, and I love just the overall presentation of the album, but didn't make as big of an impact as I was hoping it was going to, and so that lessened the enjoyment just a hair, which is why it got the number 4 spot. It still is one of my favorite albums of this year, but I wouldn't quite put it past number 4. That being said, let's go on to number 3. Number 3, Act 4, Rebirth and Reprise by The Deer Hunter. This album came to me a bit late in the year, and I'm glad that it did come so late because it gave me this lull. There was really nothing coming out in, say, the late October, early November area, so it gave me all of November and a good chunk of December just to digest and love this album. The whole album from start to finish is just dripping with brilliant music. It also has a little bit of a modern feel to it, something that I felt for the past 2 decades. It was really hard to incorporate the modern music with progressive rock, and I felt like this band is able to do that. Now granted, it's not a perfect album. The ending does just kind of go. It doesn't really do too much near the end, but just the middle and the beginning, the first 3 acts are so beautiful on this album. It's hard not to gush about it. Number 2, Spirit by Comedy of Errors. I love the overall presentation of this album in that it is essentially just one piece of music that happens to be divided into different songs and whatnot, but even those songs are still subdivided into different parts and different movements. And the music that is brought to the forefront with this album is just so good. It incorporates so many different styles. There's, you know, one part near this massive build-up where it starts off almost like a Jean-Michel Jarre movement with the overuse of synthesizers. And then it builds up and almost becomes like a shadow of an Oas from John Anderson. Just the overall presentation and the detail of thought that was put into this. Each build-up is crafted so beautifully. You can see the resolution of it coming, and it's just so delicious when it finally happens. The use of the build-ups and the payoffs are just great. They're so good. I can't not love this album. Every time I put it on, it is just dripping with great music. Overall, a very good album. A lot of the times I'm listening to a lot of very dark albums. I mean, look at this list. There's a lot of dark albums on here. And this was one of the first very optimistic albums. I know a lot of people love the more melodramatic, a little bit more of the depressing songs, and that's perfectly fine. I love those songs too. I love those more optimistic and those more happy songs. And I feel like progressive rock doesn't have enough of those right now. And so whenever I see an album like this, I just gravitate towards it and latch on because it's so great and so refreshing too when it's this good. Okay, getting down to the number 1 spot, we have Plus 4626 Comfort Zone by Beardfish. I am very disappointed to see that this album isn't on more top 10 or top 20 albums of this year. So to see that it hasn't really hit as many people as it has me. Maybe it's because this album had such a profoundly personal effect on me that I love it so much. It hit so many points of just things that I identified with. I kept listening to this album over and over and over again and thinking, yeah, that's it. That is exactly it. I love that concept of the comfort zone. Just the different types of comfort zones that people have and how it can impair or hold people back from doing what they really want. Or how we just work ourselves into this comfort zone and we don't actually realize that we're there until it's almost too late. I love that concept, and I think it's such a profound concept even on myself that there are some songs on this album that move me to the point of getting very emotional. If you're able to do this, you've done something incredibly right. And when you pair it with such beautiful music, I don't know, it's above words at that point. And I love the fact that the band tried a lot of different styles of music on this album. I felt like a lot of their past albums, they tried one style and stuck to it. I mean, The Void was very much a metal album. Mammoth was very much a jazzy album. I felt like with Comfort Zone, they were trying different things and it worked very well within the concept because they were trying to get out of their comfort zone. They were trying a lot of new things and most of the time it worked. I love when a band tries new things and it really sticks. They had songs on here that were more of like a power metal. They had songs on here that were very intimate and slow songs. And the more I listened to it, the more I got out of it. And it was very much like holding a mirror to myself and really reflecting where I was when I was listening to that. And again, it's a very great reflection piece. And that is why it made #1 on my list. The overall music is amazing. It's beyond words, especially the title track of Comfort Zone. The concept knocked it out of the park. It was a beautiful concept and executed perfectly. And the overall packaging and the overall display of everything on this album, it was very, very well done. It's the album that I kept going back to throughout the entire year. And each time I was wondering, am I still going to connect to it? And I did. I listened to it just this past week and it still connected perfectly. And that's why I had to put it at #1 of this year. And that's about it for this year's top 10. What did you guys think? I know you're probably going to disagree, so let me know what you thought down below. What were your own top 10 albums of this year? Which ones do you feel needed to be on my list, and which ones do you think didn't need to be on my list? Thank you guys so much for watching. I just got a new spurt of followers, so thank you all for that. That is amazing. I am now over 120. That is so great. You guys have been so nice, and I love you guys for that. So many times when people do this, you always get a whole bunch of bashing and negative comments, so I love the fact that you guys are so polite. You guys are A+ in my books. Thank you guys so much. And that's about it. I'll see you guys all in 2016. Notes out for 2015.